right, welcome back inside our Proactive Newsroom. Joining me now is Nader Pourhassan, the CEO of CytoDyn. Nader, great to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
And also joining us is the Chief Science Advisor for CytoDyn, Dr. Jay Lalezari. And Dr. Lalezari, great to see you as well.
Thank you, Steve.
Nader, we want to talk to you first because you put out some information about a data safety monitoring committee that has looked at your phase 3 clinical trial right now. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's happening with the trial, how many patients, and also what this safety committee came up with.
So the safety committee, the data safety monitoring committee met. They look at the unblinded data for safety, and they told us that we should not change anything. There is no modification needed and go forward. That's a big success for any company who has a data safety monitoring committee look at their data. The primary endpoint in this study was mortality. And we also have another study, CD10, but I let Dr. Jay Lalezari, who's a patient activist, the most important thing is safety of a drug, to talk about perhaps CD12, where we just got the news that we got.
Yeah, Dr. Lalezari, let's talk about that, specifically CD12. Tell me what this all means so people can understand it.
Well, in the course of any new drug development, the biggest concern, number one, is safety. And what CytoDyn has managed now is both in their mild to moderate study, CD10, and now, even more importantly, in their severe and critical patients, CD12, shown that Leronlimab safety profile is as good as it was back in the day when we were just working in HIV. So that's a major milestone for the Data Safety Committee to review the safety and say there's no signal, there's no concern about patient safety. If you try to go beyond that, then you start reading the tea leaves, and we'll have answers soon enough about the efficacy of Leronlimab in treating COVID patients.
Yeah, can you tell us how do you go about deciding, if it's safe? Is it just adverse reactions, or is it what sort of things does a committee look for?
Well, in the CD10, what we saw, I think, remarkably, was a very clinically significant reduction in serious adverse events, which are predefined as really bad things that can happen, including death and intubation. And in that study, we saw that patients on Leronlimab had their rate of serious adverse events was reduced by about half. And I've never seen that I've been the principal investigator on 300 clinical studies. I've never seen a study where the active drug arm reduced the SAEs compared to placebo. We never see that. And if you think about it, that really is, in the end, the important metric for patients with COVID, period. What kind of serious adverse events do they experience, and can we reduce them? And then, the DSMC did not disclose the details of their review of CD12, but they were looking at serious adverse events, regular adverse events, and we're just gratified that they made a determination that there was nothing to be concerned about.
And one thing, Steve, that we might want to add here is we just announced our CD10, which was mild to moderate results. A lot of people think that we just put the safety out there and letting them hang for the efficacy. That's not the case. The efficacy portion of our mild to moderate population versus the efficacy of the trial that we just did, Data Safety Monitoring Board, which is CD12, are very crucial. In the CD10, we announced that we found parameters. Now, phase 2 is a proof of concept. Any parameter in your secondary outcome or primary outcome is just perfect if you can find a perfect difference between Leronlimab and placebo. We found them. And and I told everybody, we believe it's statistically significant, and we're gonna give the p-value, and we have to finalize those reports before we can give exact. But that's my opinion, that we will announce statistically significant parameter. Now, what does that parameter mean? That means now you go back to FDA, you can do phase 3, but if you're in pandemic and the FDA recognized that what you found was good enough to go to approval and do perhaps phase 4, that could happen. That's CD10, mild to moderate. In this study, the data safety monitoring board look at the death, the mortality. And if as the Dr. J. Lalezari described, those safety signals are all have no problem, we go forward. Our efficacy data will be looked at interim analysis. That's coming up. So we got quite a bit of things coming up. Next week, the top line report for the efficacy, what the word that we want to make sure everybody knows, the efficacy will be revealed. And then the CD12, the one that we just talked about, has an interim analysis coming up. We also have a type A meeting with FDA for our BLA submission that we had problems. So we got quite a bit of stuff coming up, not to mention, not to forget the publication of the data for emergency IND patients that we were very, very excited about, and we are excited still because we think there's going to be good things coming up for us.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's continuing to be busy and important milestones met as well. Nader, thank you so much. Great to talk to you again, and we look forward to talking again real soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
All right,
Steve.
Nader Pourhassan, the CEO of CytoDyn, and Jay Lalezari, good to see you as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Steve.
All right, he's the Chief Science Advisor for CytoDyn.